Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Kuri, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. What is the number one thing that you can do in order to change your sexless relationship? In this episode, we're going to dive in deeper into that one thing, and most people miss it because they focus on the wrong thing. And a lot of you guys who are trying to change a sexless relationship, you have been told information that has led you down the wrong path. And it's one of those situations where if you start a big boat going maybe 3,000 miles, for example, and you start it off on the wrong path, it would be several thousand miles off the target because it started off pointing the wrong direction. And today, hopefully, I can point you the right direction. So you find the path, or at least you start walking the path towards actually changing a sexless relationship. And to show you how some of you guys have been misled, a lot of the times the people that I see that are out there that are coaching, they usually take this virtual signaling position where the woman is the victim or somebody who had been dealt the worst blow. And what do I mean by that is that whenever I speak to a lot of guys that are wanting to change their sexless relationship, they tend to be incredible people that just want to have a good relationship, provide for their families, are respectful towards their wives. They just have a few issues when it comes to behavior around sexuality and just how they approach it. So it really is just a process of really getting them to understand the sexual behavior and how to implement some of that within their relationship. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So when it comes to some of these coaches, they say, she's stressed and therefore you should reduce her stress. So maybe take on a few more jobs around the house, maybe take her out for date nights, do more of stuff in order to change her state type thing, or do something in reaction to how she is feeling. And again, it's almost like what you're feeling in terms of your sexual desire is irrelevant. It's only relevant as and when you appease this really unhappy monster, to lack of a better term. So when it comes to changing a sexless relationship, when I hear these guys, I see what they're trying to say, that, be more, still raise your standard in terms of how you operate in the relationship. And we do so, we talk about this, if you're going to take her out for date night, let it be something that you guys are already celebrating a really amazing relationship instead of you trying to alter the way the relationship is going. So what do I mean by that? Again, when it comes to date nights, a lot of the times when you take somebody out on a date night in order to change a sexless relationship, what tends to happen is that you might actually enjoy the change of scenery, but what tends to happen is that when you go back home, you regress to your habits and behaviors that have caused this sexual discomfort, and then you always go back, you regress back to that situation. So there's no real solution when it comes to that. In fact, the taking away of stress and the dealing away of stress is not your responsibility. And I've even heard some people say, she's unhappy, so you need to do X, Y, Z. It's not your duty to make her feel happy. So, and then I think this is one of the things that is a misconception. Again, society has made us think this way. But again, a lot of it's not your responsibility to do so. These are adults. You're married to an adult who's supposed to be able to emotionally regulate themselves. And if they cannot cope, they find ways of coping, or at least grow to the point where they can find ways of means of coping. So that's one side of things. The other side of it is where I've had some other coaches talk about that you have to take full responsibility of your actions, and absolutely agree with that. There's a lot of things that you've done in order to contribute to this sexual discomfort, which is why you're not having sex. So there's certain types of behavior, the way you speak, and a large chunk of it comes down into the stuff that we're talking about, where you are obsessed in trying to make her feel happy, you're obsessed with trying to make her feel comfortable, and you are taking on more than you should in terms of the household chores. You're bending over backwards. In fact, I was reading something on Reddit, and on a lot of Reddit subreddits, and this lady was saying, I'm about to cheat on my husband. And the crazy part about this is that he is incredible. He will do everything that I ask, and he's the most greatest father that is I've ever seen. He's good, but even though there's all of this stuff that he does that is amazing, I still feel like I want to cheat on him. And I thought to myself, like, this guy is doing everything in his power to become this incredible husband. And when I read the comments, people were saying how dare you, and how crazy, and you are a horrible person. But I thought to myself, this is just behavior from somebody who really needs somebody who's a man, who stands up. And what I mean by that is that we talk about dominance and what that means, and she's craving somebody who's going to be able to put it in a place and really call it out some of her bullshit. And again, being able to do that is one of the things that makes the relationship authentic, because a lot of times when guys are extremely good, they are not authentic to themselves. They are willing to sacrifice their own happiness in order to make her feel happy, which is, again, inauthentic. It robs her the opportunity of actually making you happy, because you're not giving her that opportunity. And again, that's what she's craving. She's craving a sense of challenge, a sense of mystery within that relationship. And so I did feel sorry for her, and she was really thinking, how do I stop myself from feeling this way? And I kept thinking to myself, this guy needs to change his behavior and be more of himself and be true to himself in order to make this relationship feel amazing for both of them. So, and again, this is where we come down to, what is it that really does change a sexless relationship? A lot of it comes down to behavior. And when it comes to behavior, in fact, when you guys were in a honeymoon period, there was a period of time where you're exploring each other, and you were there was a bit of scarcity, so you were seeing each other at limited intervals, and also sometimes you would have longer periods without seeing each other, which created this sense of scarcity, which created desire. And all of a sudden, over a period of time, as you showed the relationship, or at least secured the relationship, the desire started going, because that nobody was going. And again, some of the things that would have come up would have been your insecurities, or at least trying to hide your insecurities. Because of that, it stuns you from actually growing. Now, there's this part about when it comes to growing a relationship, there's two things that you have to be doing. And I know I said one, but it comes down to the actual how you deal with your insecurities as they pop up within your relationship and cause a sense of negativity, or at least friction. And then how you talk about how it's affecting you, or at least talk about how to grow from the friction that has been caused. And I'm just going to really say that. So generally, when you approach a relationship, because you have past backgrounds, you've got all these fears, you've got all these negative traumas that you've had growing up, there's no way anybody who lives right now has grown up without experiencing some kind of trauma, and that influences the behavior within a closer relationship. So as you get closer, and as you love each other, and as you live together, these insecurities will cause you to behave in certain ways that will cause friction in the relationship. Now, most people don't know how to communicate when there's a friction within the relationship. Most people try and ignore it. And sometimes there's this also concept we've talked about, is that when I used to work at I've worked in many factories, and we had to stop this, especially in our factory, where you would count how many days since an accident had happened. Now, what that tends to do is create behavior of trying to minimize the number. So people would not report near misses. People would not report when things are going wrong, because they want to keep that number to zero. And what tend to happen is that things would be progressively getting worse, and then you would have this really, really major accident because people were ignoring something that was progressively getting worse. So by keeping that metric of, oh, there's no arguments, there's no friction within our relationship, while you're focused on keeping that to a minimum, what tends to happen is that it actually makes the relationship worse, being one of the key causes of a sexless relationship, because there's these unresolved issues. And again, that issue doesn't necessarily mean it's you. Sometimes it's you reacting to her trauma, and you not being able to deal with it then becomes this thing that disrupts your sexual encounters within your relationship. So hopefully that actually makes sense. So when it comes to then how do you change a sexless relationship, is that ability then to recognize that we are within this place where there's friction, which is okay. But more importantly, how do we communicate in a way then that we actually grow from it? Now, most women will not have a very good skills of conversating, especially if you've taken this submissive role. Every time there's any friction, you take this submissive role of trying to fix everything, which tends to put her in a place where she feels superior and never takes accountability for her actions. And again, it's not your fault, or part of it is your fault because you've just continued feeding into that narrative that she already had as she was growing up. And I see this when the difference between my son and my daughter in terms of the interactions that she has in the house and the interactions that she might have with other people, that the way my son was held accountable for certain things and the way my daughter is not held accountable for certain things. And obviously I will hold her accountable for it. But what I mean by that is that most women, because of, especially by the time they get to 11, start developing breast and so on, most people will, especially men, will allow them to have, no, when I say men, I mean the boys that are within their proximity will start changing their behaviors. And as they have horrible behavior, the boys will allow that horrible behavior to happen and never call them out on that behavior. And then they think it's okay, especially when they're not being held accountable, they just think it's okay that they can behave however they want. And then this bad behavior continues to grow and comes into your relationship. And the fact that you now are trying to address some of these situations, or where you don't have skills to address these situations, it becomes this stumbling block for a relationship. And when I speak to guys, they've been doing this for at least 10, 15 years in the same place, where they've just do not know how to make their partner feel like accountable or even take responsibility for the relationship itself. Because again, when they don't feel accountable for negative behaviors, then how are they going to take this relationship seriously? And more importantly, how are they going to take you seriously when you don't hold them accountable for anything? And again, I usually use this analogy, and I'm not saying your wife is a dog, but generally is the more accountable I make my dog in terms of the behaviors, and then also the better behaved my dog is, the more in love it is with me. If I don't make it accountable for the certain behaviors, the more likely that it might get aggressive and potentially challenge me for alpha spot. And this is what tend to happen. And that behavior within a dog is similar to any other animal and no different to human beings, even more so within a relationship. So now I'm not saying go out there and start barking orders and, again, there's ways of how you're going to communicate this. There's ways of how you're going to establish this. So I'm going to end it over here, and hopefully this is my first episode back. There's a few technical stuff that I need to do in order to create this episode. I've now figured out how to do so. I was also on holiday, spending time with my kids, really focused on that, refreshed, and I'm excited to go and really start thinking about 2025 and what that looks like. So I'm really excited about the next few episodes that are going to coming up. I've got loads of episodes, I've got loads of ideas that I want to share with you guys that I'm really excited about. So see you guys on the next episode. Thank you very much. Take care.